Welcome back to the Team Debate Miami Heat podcast, your one-stop shop for daily Miami Heat content. My name is Amir. Before we get started on today's episode, just want to thank everybody for supporting the channel, pushing to 3,000 subscribers. So if you guys do enjoy the content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It would mean a lot. So the Miami Heat lost last night to the Detroit Pistons in a heartbreaking game, which was predictable that the Miami Heat were going to lose this game. They lost to a three-point bank buzzer beater by Cade Cunningham, and the Miami Heat find new ways to lose. They're now on a 9-game losing streak, and they are currently 29-40, which is wild to think. They're 11 games below 500. They're 10th in the Eastern Conference right now, and they're free-falling. And there's only 13 games left. They don't have enough time to turn this around, even though Coach Spoelstra has said that he thinks the team has been worthy of a victory, and they've lost 9 games in a row. I don't see how they're worthy because 8 of those 9 games they had a double-digit lead, and the Miami Heat had a double-digit lead early in this game. It wasn't like in the fourth quarter, but they did go into the fourth quarter, I believe, up 5 points. But either way, Miami Heat still technically blew another double-digit lead, making it the 19th time that this has happened this season, which leads the entire NBA. This is the 17th time they lost a fourth quarter lead, not a double-digit fourth quarter lead, but a fourth quarter lead. And basically, that's also a first in the league as well. So Tyler Hero played well. He finished with 29 points. Bam Adebayo played really well, probably one of his best games of the season. And we lost. He had 30 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. Khalil Ware was solid, even though he had some bad moments where he was out of position on some rebounds, and Jalen Duren got some second chance opportunities. But he was solid with 14 and 12. He was 7 for 10 from the field. He had 3 blocks and a steal. Duncan was solid with 14 points. Davion Mitchell off the bench was solid, but no one else. The Miami Heat's depth used to be a strong point for this time, Miami Heat team, but not anymore. Right now, the Miami Heat, their offensive rating, they're 23rd in the NBA, points per game, 109. They're at 26th. They're one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA. They're one of the worst free throw shooting teams. That one doesn't get to the free throw line, and when they do, they don't make those free throws. So it's been rough. And, players like Jaime Jaquez has regressed. Haywood Highsmith is in and out of the lineup, and he's inconsistent. Then you have Terry Rozier in and out of the lineup. He's inconsistent and playing bad. You have Duncan Robinson, who has stretches where he's good for a few games, and then he's off. You have all these role players outside of Bam and Tyler who are not stepping up. And then you also have Bam, who's inconsistent, where he'll be great for a month, and then he'll play 5 or 6 games where he regresses to that Bam Adebayo, who is not looking to shoot, who's taking under 10 field goals, who's getting like 6, 7, 8, 9 points, whatever it is. And that can't happen post Jimmy Butler era. Like, I'm sorry, Bam, but you need to get your head out of your ass and not play like shit on national TV. Yes, you made up for it yesterday, but it didn't equate to a win. Games before that, though, Bam was struggling mightily, where he had 6 points and 9 points, which is not good enough. And Tyler Hero has been really good this season, but it's not equating to wins. Again, not his fault. He's not as good as he was pre-All-Star break, but he's had some good games. But again, the Miami Heat can't get over the hump. This is the longest losing streak in the Eric Spoelstra era since he's been a Heat coach, since back in 2008. And I don't think there's an end in sight yet, because the Miami Heat play the Houston Rockets on Friday, and that should be a loss because the Rockets are a way better team. Heat are also going to play again without Josh Christopher, Keshad Johnson, and Isaiah Stevens tomorrow. And I don't know. I have a theory. Maybe the Heat are actually quiet tanking, and they don't want to inject some youth and some energy into this roster where these guys have barely played any regular season games. They've all been playing for the Skyforce, and they're hungry to make the roster, to get a standard contract for the guys that are on the two-ways. Like Josh and Isaiah, like they want standard contracts. They want an opportunity to prove themselves. They want to play on the NBA level. Maybe we're not playing them because maybe if you infuse them, still, obviously, we're not going to tank and sideline Tyler Hero or Bam. But if you add a Isaiah Stevens at the point guard position off the bench and reinsert Davion back into the starting lineup. Maybe that can infuse some life for the second unit, someone who could run the floor, having another like true point guard off the bench. Maybe we can get some points because we're very stagnant. And again, like I mentioned, 23rd in offensive rating, 26 points per game. Josh Christopher is a bucket. Obviously he's inconsistent, but he's someone who's not afraid to shoot, and that's something we need. Someone who can get hot potentially. So why not play him off the bench and give him an opportunity? Why not give Pelle Larsson some more opportunity? Even though we are like not getting any victories right now, like he's not playing enough. Like we're still playing Kyle Anderson. We're still playing guys, Alec Burks last night. Like just unload the clip and let these guys play. But I guess maybe Spo thinks again, like I said, if you insert a Keshaw Johnson over a Haywood Highsmith, he's going to be playing balls to the wall, like as hard as you can, because this is their championship. Anytime they can get into an NBA game, they're going to be playing like it's a playoff game. So maybe that's why we're not doing it. But anyway, this season has been rough. The Miami Heat play the Houston Rockets, like I said, next, and that should be a loss. And then after that, they do play the Hornets, who they lost to most recently a week ago, and that's probably their most winnable game for a while, because after that, Jimmy Butler comes in town with the Golden State Warriors on Tuesday, March 25th, should be an L. Then they're playing the Atlanta Hawks, which could be a win or not, who knows. Then they're playing Philadelphia, which should be a win until Quentin Grimes, who's now like primetime Kobe Bryant all of a sudden, averaging like 28 points per game when this guy wasn't even in the rotation for the Dallas Mavericks. They could even beat us. And we play Boston again and Memphis and Milwaukee. It's like, it's really tough. And there's only 13 games left. And at this point, again, I'm not going to actively root for my team to lose, but if the Miami Heat lose, I'm not going to be upset anymore at this point. So it's going to help us in the future by giving us a better opportunity at a higher draft pick. So that's one of the benefits of the Miami Heat losing, even though, again, I'm not actively rooting for my team to lose these games, but they just can't help it. They're not good enough. They don't have enough talent. Eric Spoelstra has been bad this year, and we just can't beat our opponents just on a night out basis. Like we just don't have a good chance to win because we don't have enough talent, which is crazy to say, but this roster, the way it's constructed, is not cohesive enough. There's not enough chemistry. We literally cannot continue to score in that fourth quarter, and our defense team seems to lapse every fourth quarter also. So it's either our offense or our defense that forget to play, or both at the same time. The Miami Heat's defense is at 13 right now, which is not horrible, but they were top 5 last year. And earlier in the season, they were top 7, top 8. And so 13 for the Heat is not great. Being outside of the top 10 is not great when that's your calling card, when that's your bread and butter. So I don't have any answers for this Miami Heat team. And yeah, I don't know what Eric Spoelstra can do. He's been tinkering with new starting lineups and rotations. He's had Jaime start. He's had Davion start. He's had other guys in and out of the lineup. He's had Khalil Ware come off the bench, and now he's back in the starting lineup. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but either way, let's take a look at the Miami Heat's odds in terms of the draft. So because of these losses now, the Miami Heat now have, I think, the 8th worst record in the NBA. And so I'm going to share my screen. So you can see now, yeah, Miami's tied with the Bulls, and they have the 8th worst record. And it's going to be hard to surpass, I think, the Raptors, like, unless they go on a huge winning streak and the Heat go on a big losing streak, which we already are, obviously. But the Raptors are 24 and 35. So we are literally, how many games above are we? Like 5 games? We're about 5 games or 5.5 games ahead of the Raptors. So we need a big swing in order to catch up with them. But I don't think we're going to catch up with Brooklyn either. But either way, if we look at this now, based on this, if the season ended today, the Miami Heat would have a 23% chance at getting a top 4 pick. They have a 34.5% chance to get the 8th pick, or 34% to get the 9th. So at worst, it looks like more than likely they will get the 9th pick. I mean, it's very possible they can get the 10th at 7.5%. It's a higher chance they get the 10th than they do the number 1 overall, or the 2 or 3 or 4. But still, those percentages have increased dramatically, because last week the Miami Heat were where Portland was at 11. They were the 11th worst record, and they've been playing so badly that now they're 8. So they went from a 2% chance to get the number 1 pick to now 5.3. So any loss for the Miami Heat is going to benefit them in terms of their draft. I've always been saying this too. Here's the issue, though. If the Miami Heat don't make the playoffs, which they're still going to be in the play-in, which is insane at this rate, and they can win those play-in games and make the playoffs, then they won't get their first-round pick this season. The Thunder will get it. But if they don't make the playoffs, then we get our first-round pick. So those are the odds I just shared with you for them to get a top 4 pick, 23%. But again, the issue is if they do get their pick this year, then the next 2 seasons, when they owe a pick next year to the Thunder and then 2 seasons from now the Hornets, those lottery picks are going to be unprotected. And again, if the Miami Heat have a horrible season because they're going to be coming back with basically the same roster for the most part, unless they get a Kevin Durant or a Trae Young or whoever it can be that might become available this offseason. But if you don't get those players and you have the same team and we suck again and someone gets hurt, like Wiggins has been hurt his whole time he's been here, he can get hurt again. Tyler, he's having a great season. He's played the second most games in his career basically at this point. He can get hurt. Bam can get hurt. You never know. And then we're done. And instead of getting a top guaranteed 5 pick or whatever for one of the worst teams in the NBA versus the 10th seed for like the 15th seed in the East, that pick goes to the Thunder. So that could be very detrimental. So I'm kind of torn. But at this point, I just don't feel like the Heat are good enough to make it to the play-in, past the play-in, and in the playoffs. So it is what it is at this point. I don't care if they lose. So we'll get the 2 picks. We could flip those to get higher in the draft, or we can flip one of those picks or 2 of those picks for a player. I don't know. We'll see. We just need more assets because the front office has made a ton of mistakes in the past 5 or 6 years, even before the Jimmy Butler era. They've made some mistakes and haven't had the assets that we needed to get star players like Donovan Mitchell and other players that have wanted to come to the Miami Heat. So either way, that's all I have for this episode. The Heat are on a 9-game losing streak, playing the Houston Rockets next. So more than likely, it's going to be a 10-game losing streak. This is the worst losing streak since 2008. And yeah, it's been rough. This has been a rough season. It needs to end soon because the Miami Heat need to be put out of their misery. So anyway, that's all I have for this episode. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel.